Okay. Never really done a video before, but I was looking online for some answers and realized there's a lot of people that don't know a lot of information about this, so I thought I would share my story. I am 50 years old. I was hurt originally in the military and ultimately had to have 5 back operations. And the last one, they put in Harrington rods and screws. And what those are like 2 bars that line each side of the spine. And then they drill through these screws that anchor the lower spine. Well, a few months ago, I started having increasing falls and also having a lot of numbness and tingling and pain in my groin area, upper thigh, and lower spine. It almost felt like it was catching all the time. So I went to the VA and I waited 3 months to get a CAT scan. CAT scan showed that I had some issues that were going on back there, so they decided to do a myelogram. If you aren't familiar with what a myelogram is, a myelogram is where they go into your, mine was the lumbar. So what they do is you go into the lumbar area and after they clean your back really well, they go ahead and put a numbing needle in to numb up the area a little bit for you. And I won't lie, that stinks. But after it's numb, it's not too bad. But because of my previous surgeries that I've had in there, I'm pretty difficult to do the myelograms in. So I mentioned this to them, and so today they actually used some IV sedation with Versed and fentanyl. And the procedure was much more bearable. I'm not saying that everybody is going to have that kind of pain. Mine is because I have so much scar tissue back there and so many defects that it's very difficult for them to get that catheter put in there. So once they numb that area up, then they take another needle and they have it's a machine called a fluoroscopy. And with the fluoroscopy, what that is it's a movable x-ray. And they actually can get a lifetime picture of your spine. So they know exactly where to place that needle in there. And once they do that, they get the right area, they put the needle in, and they withdraw some of your spinal fluid to check it and make sure that you don't have any issues going on. They check for blood or for it being cloudy or something like that could indicate that maybe it's something else that's going on back there. So they do that, and then they proceed to place this dye into that little fine catheter that they have in your back. And they inject the dye, and then what they do is they watch the spine and see how that dye is able to get around in your back. And then what that would show is obviously it will show some defects, especially if you have some of the nerves that are being pinched. I found that I have where my spinal cord is kinked in 2 spots. And so, and a lot of scar tissue back there. So for him, it was kind of hard to get the dye to move. And so when he was pressing that in there, because I have scar tissue, and basically when he injected the dye just didn't want to budge. So I had a lot of pressure. Even with the pain medication, I had a lot of pressure. And so what they do then is they take these pictures, these live pictures, and then they'll tip your head forward. I had the thoracic as well as the lumbar. And so they tip your bed, head down, feet down. And that way they can really view how well that fluid is able to, the dye is able to get through there and look for defects that you might have in your spine. So after that, really wasn't too bad. Uncomfortable. Pressure. But again, I've got a lot of stuff that's going on back there, so what bothers me may not bother anybody else. So Oh, and you are laid on your stomach for this procedure. So after that, they put a Band-Aid on there, and then they put you on a gurney and they take you away. And for me, it was to have a CAT scan done. And after they sent me to CAT scan, they go ahead and they did more advanced pictures with the dye that's in there for you. And then they take you back to recovery. The VA had me lay there for 3 hours. Some doctors do 2 hours, some doctors do 4 hours. You know, you could be an inpatient and, you know, be there all night. But for me, it was just like 3 hours, I think it was. So during my recovery, I started developing a little bit of a headache. Oh, yeah, when I was in there complaining of this really bad pressure in the pelvic area and the groin, he tried to release some of the dye through the catheter, but because of my defects in there, he was losing CSF, which stands for cerebral spinal fluid, and he said he wouldn't do any more because that would just increase the risk of me having a spinal headache. So, but when I got back to recovery, I was having that same sensation. So they were able to call and get a pain pill for me because I had a 40-minute drive home. So I started having a little bit of a headache, but really it's not bad. When I'm laying down, I don't have it at all. And when I sit up, it's noticeable. And still lots of pressure in the spine. And they tell you to increase your fluids 24 hours prior to, and then the day of, they ask you to increase your fluids to replace everything and also to get the dye out of your system quicker. And so for 24 hours, they tell you to lie, it used to be to lie flat, and now they say like 30 degrees. So I'm laying on the couch watching TV, and but laying down, it's not so bad. But getting up, I definitely can feel that they did something back there. So for 24 hours, you lay flat. And you're supposed to monitor, you know, in case you run a fever of over like 100. I'm running a little low grade. It's like 99.5, but not too bad. So just something to keep an eye on. And I have increased my fluid intake with that, and just laying down and really just taking it easy. So for 24 hours, I'll be doing this. And then for approximately, I think 24 hours after that, then you, no bending, no stooping, because they are just trying to decrease your chance of getting a spinal headache altogether. So, but overall, I would say most people probably, it's a tolerable procedure to me. The worst part was actually the numbing medication. But then that might have been because I had good drugs on board this time. I don't know. So I will take it easy for 24 hours and then see how I do tomorrow. They said if, you know, the pressure or the headache increases, to let them know. Obviously I will, because that kind of headache that you get from this can be the worst headache of your life. I can't even tell you how bad it is, because it's like a headache you've never had. Never. And walking, and you have to walk stooped over, going to the bathroom. You don't even want to drink fluids because you don't want to have to get up to go to the bathroom. So fingers crossed that I'm doing everything right, and it's just gonna, you know, take some time. So I hope I answered some questions that some of you that have never had this procedure done before, and I'll let you know how I'm doing in 24 hours. So